There is a question that quietly follows many people through their 30s and 40s. You may not say it out loud. You may hide it behind promotions, busy schedules, mortgage payments, and family responsibilities. But it remains. Is this really the life I wanted? For many people, the problem is not failure. The problem is success. They followed the rules, worked hard, built careers, and did everything they were told would lead to happiness. Yet something still feels missing. Today's story is about a man named Mark. On paper, Mark had succeeded. He was 38 years old. He worked as an operations manager for a manufacturing company outside Denver. He owned a house in a quiet neighborhood. He had a wife, 2 children, and a salary that paid the bills. From the outside, his life looked stable. Inside, he felt restless. Every morning he sat in traffic and looked at the luxury cars around him. At work he watched executives discussing investments and early retirement plans. At night he scrolled through social media and saw former classmates building businesses, traveling the world, buying vacation homes, and seemingly living without worry. The same thought returned again and again. Everyone else figured something out. Everyone except me. One Friday evening, after another exhausting week of meetings, deadlines, and endless emails, Mark sat alone in his living room. The television played quietly in the background. His children had gone to bed. His wife had fallen asleep upstairs. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes for a moment, and drifted into sleep. And then he began to dream. In his dream, he found himself standing in front of a beautiful home overlooking the ocean. The driveway held expensive cars. The backyard stretched toward the water. A voice said, "This is your life now." Mark realized he had become his old college friend Daniel, a successful entrepreneur who had sold his company for millions. At first, it felt incredible. Money was no longer a concern. People admired him. Opportunities appeared everywhere. His calendar was full of important meetings and exciting projects. But as the days passed, something changed. His phone never stopped ringing. Every investment carried risk. Employees depended on him. Competitors threatened his business. He woke up anxious and went to bed worried. His success had purchased freedom, but it had also purchased fear. "I thought this was the answer," Mark said. The voice replied, "Then become something greater." Suddenly he found himself sitting inside a large corporate office. He had become a powerful executive. Hundreds of employees reported to him. People listened when he spoke. He earned more money than he had ever imagined. But every decision carried enormous pressure. Layoffs, budgets, shareholders, targets. He missed family dinners. His daughter stopped asking if he would attend her soccer games because she already knew the answer. His son became quiet around him. One evening he looked into a mirror and barely recognized the tired man staring back. Again the voice asked, "Do you want more?" "Yes," Mark answered. And the world changed again. Now he had become a famous online personality. Millions followed him. His videos reached people around the world. Every post received thousands of comments. For a while he enjoyed the attention. But praise quickly became criticism. Strangers judged him. Every mistake became public. He could never truly relax because his value depended on the approval of people he had never met. He felt alone despite being seen by millions. Surely, he thought, someone else has the better life. Again the voice appeared. And this time Mark became a wealthy investor. He no longer worked. He traveled whenever he wanted. He owned beautiful homes and expensive cars. His financial problems had disappeared. Yet the days felt strangely empty. His children had grown up. Old friendships had faded. Conversations felt shallow. He had gained time but lost connection. Sitting alone in a large house one evening, he whispered, "What am I missing?" The voice did not answer. Instead, he found himself walking down a quiet neighborhood street. The houses looked familiar. The trees. The sidewalks. The old basketball hoop. It was his own neighborhood. He approached a small garage. Inside sat unfinished woodworking projects covered in dust. An old guitar leaned against the wall. Camping equipment rested in the corner. Family photographs covered a workbench. And sitting in a chair was an older version of himself. The man smiled. "You finally made it here." Mark sat down. "Who are you?" "I'm the life you stopped building." Mark looked around the garage. "None of this matters." The older man shook his head. "These were your dreams before you borrowed everyone else's." He pointed toward the photographs. "You wanted time with your family." He pointed toward the guitar. "You wanted to create." He pointed toward the camping gear. "You wanted adventure." Then he looked directly at Mark. "You spent years chasing lives that were never yours." Mark felt something inside him break. He had spent so much time comparing himself to executives, entrepreneurs, influencers, and wealthy friends that he had forgotten to ask one simple question. What do I actually want? The older man spoke one final time. The greatest mistake adults make is climbing a ladder without asking who placed it against the wall. The garage slowly faded. The house disappeared. The dream dissolved. Mark opened his eyes. The sun was beginning to rise. The house was quiet. He walked upstairs and looked into his children's rooms. He sat beside his wife. Nothing had changed. The mortgage still existed. The job still waited. The bills remained. But something inside him was different. For the first time in years, he understood that his dissatisfaction had never come from having too little. It came from measuring his life against people living entirely different lives. The entrepreneur carried stress. The executive carried pressure. The influencer carried judgment. The wealthy investor carried loneliness. Every life contains its own burdens. Every form of success asks for a price. Real freedom is not becoming someone else. It is deciding what matters enough to become more fully yourself. Many people spend decades chasing promotions, money, status, and recognition because they believe those things will finally make them feel complete. But completeness does not arrive with a bigger paycheck. It arrives when your daily life reflects your actual values. Perhaps the question is not, who has the better life? Perhaps the better question is, what kind of life would be enough for me? Because the grass will always appear greener somewhere else. There will always be someone wealthier. Someone younger. Someone more successful. Someone further ahead. But peace begins when you stop borrowing other people's definitions of success. The life you want may already be sitting quietly in your own garage, waiting for you to come back. And sometimes the greatest act of personal development is not becoming someone new. It is remembering who you were before the world told you who to become.